So we're just about ready to get started. As we go along, I've got the subtitles on again, but they seem to be as useful as they were last time we tried to use them. But I'll just persevere a little bit on that one. I know they are useful to some of the people who join us, so we'll see how we go with that one. I see a few people already saying hello via the chat, and Rhonda reckons the subtitles are a good laugh, so we'll see how we go. Anyway, yeah, if you want to rename yourselves on the bottom there, but and if you want to, with your name and your organisation. And yeah, as we've said a few times, we really want to have your engagement in this, the conversation, this side of it. It's not just about me, but there will be a fair bit today, especially about the industry plans that I'm sure everyone's interested in. So we'll get that happening. We'll try to keep it as one person speaking at a time. But if you have a bright idea or a comment or an answer to someone else's question, please feel free to jump in as we get going. That said, we actually do reserve the right to mute people if there's, you know, background noise and that sort of thing. It's making it hard for everyone else, but we try not to do that unnecessarily. And we're going to do some polls. We go. Oh, the other one I need to say, it's on the screen there, that we are recording the sessions from now on, and we'll make those available on our website. So yeah, that will be available publicly. So I just want to make that clear from the outset. We'll just do the quick poll on the video and audio quality so far. So I think I'm right to launch that one, which is nice. We'll just do that quickly, and then we'll get underway. And to answer David's question, my coffee's been good today, David, fortunately. So I'm happy about that. How's yours, mate? Thumbs up? All right. Just about everyone's already answered that, so I'll close that one off. It looks like it's either great or okay for everyone, which is terrific. So we'll get rolling. Thank you very much. The CORF acknowledges the traditional owners of the land on which we gather, and even as we do so electronically right across Queensland and people from interstate across Australia. We pay respect to the elders past, present and emerging, and acknowledge the important roles of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples within and across the outdoor community. CORF also acknowledges the support provided to CORF and also to the outdoor sector across Queensland by the Queensland Government. This is the 12th session of Coffee and Conversation. Welcome. I had to actually look up how to spell 12th. I had a moment yesterday where I could not spell the word 12th, but I've worked it out now, and it's easier if you just put 1, 2, TH. That's the secret I've discovered. But anyway, yeah, my name's Dom Courtney. I'm the Executive Officer of CORF, the Queensland Outdoor Recreation Federation. Mark Squires, the CORF's Partnerships Manager, is my fellow co-host. I think Hubertine Witches, our Office Manager, and also Angela Wright, our Nature Play Queensland Program Manager, are with us as well. A few members of the CORF board may be joining us today. Lana Bold, Denise Cox, Ray Buchanan, Andrew Critter Boyle, Murray Stewart, Ross Barnes and Peter Gould are the complete board, and thank you to them for their service to the organisation. And we might have 1 or 2 CORF Life members too, Dave Batt, Donna Little, Kathy Kingsford, Brian Cross and John Wood, who may be joining us, so welcome to them. And to everyone else who's joining. It's really good to continue to have so many people join these sessions, and I guess that's an indication that you find them valuable. So yeah, welcome. As I said earlier, we are going to make the recordings of these sessions publicly available based on the feedback that we've had. So other people will be able to view them at their leisure, or you will too, but others won't be able to participate. So I'd still encourage everyone to join us if you can on a Friday, but you will have the opportunities, if you do miss one for whatever reason, to watch the recording later on. And also just a reminder on our e-news subscriptions, and feel free to let other people know that that's available. There's plenty of information in our monthly e-news, as well as the bulletins we send out in between as we hit a topic or an announcement that we feel is necessary to share. And we try not to spam too much, but there certainly has been more of those e-news bulletins going out recently than we have in the past. But yeah, I just wanted to remind you about that one. A bit of an agenda for today. There's a lot on there. We'll get straight into it. A whole lot of today is going to be about our industry plans, which are not yet approved by the Chief Health Officer. I was literally checking my emails just before we started. We're waiting on that, but there's also a few other things I just wanted to run through from the outset, and we'll get stuck into it. But also, the last dot point there, other matters, question mark, that's an opportunity if anyone has any things that they want to bring up and discuss. You can let us know in advance of these sessions, or just pop it in the chat if there's topics that you think we need to spend some time on. Please let us know, because we're here for your discussion. It's not just about what I want to talk about. So please let me know if there are other topics, or we'll let Mark know, and we can certainly keep it moving along in the right direction, I suppose, is the important part. And speaking of moving right along, just wanted to start with some opportunities. This is really about to help recover and get back into action. TAFE Queensland has a range of education and training to support individuals and small, medium and large business. So they've got these free online skill sets that are available for Queensland residents if you're a job seeker or a worker impacted by COVID-19. And we know that's a large number of people across our industry. So they're free, those skill sets, if you want to do that through TAFE. They've also got some free for eligible businesses, some financial resilience webinars that TAFE are offering for small and medium businesses. So it's certainly worth a look. There's also some TAFE training which is specific about COVID-19, which will be referenced in the industry plans. So there's links in the industry plans to those ones, but I just wanted to flag that right now, that there is the training that TAFE's making available, and the government is basically subsidising it, or it's free training. So it's certainly worth looking at. And the other one on the right-hand side of the screen there, the Active Queenslanders Industry Alliance, they've done a series of webinars, which we've talked about previously, but they're also, and they're going to do some more of those, but they're also preparing industry-specific training for fitness, recreation and sport organisations to help with the return to our very valuable work. And that training will also align with the requirements of the industry COVID safe plan. So they're putting that together right now. They haven't launched it yet, but I just wanted to let you know that that is coming too. So there will be some support there as far as assisting with training. Let me know if there's any questions as we go along on any of these too. I'm keeping an eye on the chat, but feel free to speak up. A couple of weeks ago, the Queensland Government announced the Sport and Rec COVID Safe Restart package. There is significant support available for non-profit organisations, so it's worth having a look at it. And for clubs and non-profit organisations, apply for this funding. I think the Fair Play vouchers, the COVID Safe Active Clubs Kickstart is now closed. I think that closed this week. But the Fair Play vouchers, I believe, are still open, so it's worth having a look at that opportunity. And then the next one will be the Active Restart Infrastructure Recovery, which, as it says there, it's grants for capital works, minor capital works. So that will be, I think that opens once stage 3 starts. So it'll be worth having a look at that one too. Rhonda's just put a point on there on the training topic that the state government has a free 1-hour mentoring program available to businesses affected by COVID-19. That's great. So I'm not sure if you've got a link to that one, Rhonda. If you could pop it in the chat, that would be awesome. So Matthew, that could actually apply maybe possibly to the question you've asked about not being able to get the small business grants, but whether there's a grant for social enterprises. And I'm not sure on that one, but yeah. And Joe's just put a comment saying the AQIA training in COVID safety specific to the industry, which will be outlined in each of the industry COVID safe plans, and it's imminent. So thanks for that, Joe. I've mentioned this one the last couple of weeks, this Seek Outdoor Jobs portal. It's actually now live. So Seek have put this together in conjunction with the OCA, the Outdoor Council of Australia, in collaboration. Right now, there aren't any ads on there showing up in it because none of the providers who've provided their ID numbers in the outdoor sector actually have any ads with Seek at the minute. But once they do, the ads will start appearing in that portal and should be a great way of sort of trying to bring new people into the outdoor sector potentially. So we'll wait and see how that comes along. As I said, there's no surcharge for inclusion in the outdoor portal. It's the same as if you're placing an ad with Seek. You don't have to pay extra to get into this section, but it's just an extra way of linking up with people who are considering the outdoor sector for employment. And as I say, it is now live, so there's a link there to it. I think if Mark, if you could pop that one in the chat, that would be terrific. I'm just checking the chat. Joe said there's also small business adaptation grants for 10,000, which will open on the 1st of July. So I'm not sure if that'll apply to you, Matthew, as a social enterprise. It would surprise me if they excluded social enterprises from the definition of small business. If you have a look at it and if you find they have, I'd be happy if you just let me know, and I might even be able to see if I can contact someone and ask a question about that one. So please let me know if that is a problem for you, mate, or anyone else running a social enterprise. I wanted to give a plug to Inside the Outhouse, which is Pete Smith from ACU and David Maskell and a couple of other people have put together this system. I guess it's basically a community platform to bring together outdoor and experiential educators from all over Australia. And they've shared a heap of information on their SharePoint site and also been running weekly webinars at the funky time of 17 minutes past 4 each Monday. And those webinars are recorded and made available through Facebook as well. There was a really good session on cleaning, disinfecting and sanitising expedition gear this week. So Wilderness Equipment and One Planet gave recommendations in relation to their gear that they've tested different cleaning, disinfecting and sanitising methods. They made a point of saying those three words mean different things and we should consider that when we're doing that. Like the cleaning is really just removing dirt and mud from our gear, whereas disinfecting and sanitising actually have technical meanings. So that's probably important to consider. But they're also looking at that same sort of topic in relation to ropes and other climbing gear, I guess, or vertical gear. So that's a future topic that Inside the Outhouse are looking at. But also the other topic that has been discussed is insurance for outdoor operators, which is an important topic as well. It's something we were thinking of handling or addressing in these sessions. But I think if Inside the Outhouse is going to do an hour-long session on it, that might be the opportunity to go to that one rather than us trying to do it here. And we probably won't do it justice in 15 minutes or 10 minutes in these sessions. So we'll see what works there, but I would encourage yeah, if you're available to join those sessions, they're a really good discussion. So that you can access them through Facebook or just email that insidetheouthouse@gmail.com. And they're certainly worth a look at. And David's just shared a couple of links to Henry from Wilderness Equipment and Ben from One Planet's videos. Thanks, David. Did you want to speak at all about those sessions, David? I'm not sure if Pete's on the line, but did you want to speak about the sessions, David? Putting you on the spot.
Pete's here. I think he's gonna, if he can get his mic working, he can chat about it.
Hello, Dom.
Good day, Pete.
So I guess just to quickly summarize to the room, I guess when the pandemic first happened, I felt I'd lost all my face-to-face employment in the outdoors, and I felt like there was a lot the rest of the outdoor sector in that position. So I just initially created this discussion forum where we were talking and perhaps giving some mental health support to outdoor educators and outdoor professionals in any capacity. And I'd just like to thank Corf and you too, Dom, for your ongoing support and publicity. And I'd like to just say, if you're not doing anything at 4:17 Eastern Daylight Time and you want to come inside the outhouse, then we'd love to have you. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Pete. And I mean, there's a really good reason that we are publicising this, because it's a really good opportunity for people to connect and to share with what's going on and what they're facing, and as you say, to support each other. So thank you for what you guys have been doing in that space too. It's certainly been good, and it's a really nice environment to join, that's how I found it anyway, that, you know, everyone's been made to feel welcome and to get some really good resources, but also to get that that emotional support that is on offer and has been needed so much in the last little while. So thank you very much, Pete and David and the rest of your crew. I've plugged this one a few times too, which is exactly speaking about the resilience and helping people as far as health in nature. So the ABAT Symposium series, there's 2 sessions left. One next Tuesday, which is the different time of 7 a.m. to 8:30 a.m. So I think some of us who haven't been able to attend too many because of other commitments, maybe that one will work. But the other one is next Friday, and it's an all-day session from 9:30 to 4:30 p.m. I'd imagine they'll probably have a break at 11 o'clock so everyone can join this session, but I haven't confirmed that. But you can still register for those sessions, and all recordings of all their sessions are available online, I think, for a month afterwards. So it might be worthwhile having a look at that one too. It's the princely sum of $20 to register for all their sessions. So, and I'm not sure, but I think if you do register now, you might get access to those previous 3 webinars they've already held. So you can always come in late and skip the queues, as they say. So, and Beck has just put, yes, you can get access to all webinars. So, Beck, did you want to speak at all about what's remaining, or even the all-day session?
Hi, guys. Yeah, I can do that. We've had 3 webinars so far. We've had between 150 and 200 folks for each of those, which is a lot more than we expected, but it's fantastic. We've actually had people from, I think, 17 different countries as well. So that's kind of cool. And we've got one on Tuesday, which is basically about the spectrum of different outdoor healthcare practices. So we've got someone who's speaking from an ecotherapy perspective and someone who's speaking from an equine therapy perspective. And then sort of some discussion of everything in between. And then next Friday, we'll have a full day of webinars, which is really just sort of tying together everything that we've been discussing and talking a little bit more about what the future of outdoor healthcare in Australia might look like. And looking at some of the research as well around the use of the nature for wellbeing and for health. So all of our recordings, all of our webinars are recorded. I know that 7:30 is a little early for some folks. And so that sort of was done to be able to cater to some of our international attendees as well, and make it a little bit easier for them for some of the webinars. But we've got recordings of all of those up, and they'll be there until the end of July. So.
Terrific. Thanks, Becky. Yeah, as I say, it's great to see that the work that ABAT's doing in that space, and promoting the really good things that we are doing across the outdoor sector to contribute to people's improved health and well-being. So thank you very much for that.
Absolutely, no problem.
You didn't mention whether there's a break between 11 and 12 next week, but we'll just assume there is. Thank you. And Mark's shared the link there to the symposium again in the chat. So moving right along, which I'm sure this is a topic that people are interested in as far as the COVID safe businesses, which is, again, I've shown this slide, I think, every week for the last few weeks. It is a critical part of preparation for getting back into work and back into delivering the services that so many of you do so well. I guess the key part is about making sure you've got a safety management system that includes COVID-19 control measures. And then, again, I've said this every week, I think, that all staff and volunteers must be informed of the plan and fully trained in all the control measures, but specifically the COVID-19 ones. And that's where that training from TAFE and AQIA will come into play. And you should also include a section on training in your plan. So that's an important one. And a really important, let's call it a pro tip, need to make sure, and this will be in the industry plans, but it applies to all, whether you opt into an industry plan or not, you need to consider whether the control measures that you're introducing to manage COVID-19 risks have introduced any increased risks in other parts of your operations. So that's a really important point that you need to consider. Even if it's a cleaning protocol, has that introduced more risks, and what do you do to control those risks? So really important to consider that in this process and think about that in relation to the review of your entire safety management system. So the industry COVID safe plans, again, we've lodged the 2 COVID safe plans for outdoor recreation activity providers and outdoor education providers. And I've literally been sitting here with fingers crossed and checking the government website every day to see if they're improved, just in case they forgot to send me an email, but they haven't yet. So they're not yet approved for Queensland. So those industry COVID safe plans are about allowing an industry to seek to have some flexibility added into the processes at stage 2 and stage 3, as opposed to what's in the roadmap for easing restrictions. And as I've said, we've submitted 2 of those industry plans. There's the next one, which I've already mentioned. There's a key part in there, and I've got the government website there, which has the approved industry plans, but also it has a link to this statement of compliance. And each Queensland business that opts into the industry plan needs to sign off on this statement of compliance and have that visible at your venue or where you operate. So even if you operate in a national park under a permit, you still need to show this statement of compliance. I'd suggest it's not a bad thing to maybe post on your website or on even on social media, and maybe send it to your clients too, to say this is what we're doing. We are aligned with a Chief Health Officer approved industry plan, if you choose to do that. And that's up to each business. But I'd suggest that the control measures in the industry plan, you may want to consider them even if you're not going to opt into it, because they'll provide plenty of guidance in relation to outdoor activities generally. So that's another one of my Dom's pro tips for today. I'm just scrolling, checking the the comments. Guy said, do we know what the Maroon Dam Education Centre is up to? They may have some inside information. I haven't heard anything from Maroon recently. I have heard from some other operators from Queensland Education Department, and they're basically waiting like the rest of us, is what I've been told. So I haven't heard directly from Maroon on that, but I know that they've certainly been involved with discussions about outdoor education inside the Education Department, which brings us along to this letter that Corf sent to the Minister for Education this week. On Wednesday, we sent the letter to Minister Grace asking that for an assurance that once the industry plan for outdoor education providers is approved by the Chief Health Officer, and obviously I'm making an assumption that it will be approved, that we're seeking assurance that the Department of Education schools will be allowed, will return to school camps once that plan's approved and implemented by our industry. So the point of that is to get some reassurance and some certainty for outdoor operators, which will then also give schools the confidence if the Education Department's making that statement. That whole letter is on our website, and there's a link there on the bottom of the screen, but we've made the statement too in there to say, look, if you don't get on with it and let us get back to what we do so well in the outdoor education space, there's actually also a potential that we will lose staff to other states as they get going, such as Victoria. The Victorian government announced that they were going to allow school camps to resume as of this Monday coming. I know David just smiled, but there's a little bit more involved in that than meets the eye. But my point is, I'm trying to put a little bit of pressure on the Queensland government to say, if you don't make a decision on this and give us some certainty, potentially our staff may head south of the border and where the work is available, and then not be able to get back to Queensland because of our border restrictions. So we're making that point to say there is some urgency on this decision, and term 3 is fast approaching. For some schools, I understand have already cancelled camps in term 3 because some of the big private schools, particularly, their school holidays start as of this afternoon because they have 3 weeks in the middle of the year. The Department of Education schools start holidays next week, but it's the harsh reality of what we're dealing with. So I just wanted to let you know that we have written to the Education Minister. We haven't got a response yet, but we've also copied this letter to senior staff within the Department of Education to let them know that that we're asking these questions of the Minister as well. So if there's any questions on that, happy to deal with those right now. And Bronda's just made the point that business and facilities can also close. Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, and David said there's still quite a bit of uncertainty. We won't tell the Queensland government that yet, David, if we're trying to use this argument. We'll just keep a bit quiet on that. I do understand that, but there's more uncertainty than I think we've ever seen before, unfortunately. And Joe's just made the point that AQAA has raised school camps with DESBIT, the Department of Employment, Small Business and Training, as part of their advice to government too, which is great to see. We're sort of coming at it at a few different angles. So thank you for doing that, Joe, on behalf of the sector. So that's our letter. I'll let everyone know once we have received anything on that. Touch wood, that won't be too far away. The outdoor recreation activity provider plan. Last Friday, I shared an image of version 7 of the plan. This week, it's version 8. We got some feedback on Monday afternoon from the government. We've added more detail in relation to mostly about workplace health and safety issues. And some of it was literally, we provided a link and said, see page 9 of this document. And they said, no, they wanted the dot points from page 9 copied into the plan itself. So that's what I did. So basically they gave me the feedback, I put it back together, turned this into version 8. It's expanded from 40 pages to 43 pages, but that's actually probably not a bad thing for operators, because pretty much everything you need to read is in the document, rather than necessarily you wading through all the links that are in the document. So they've got the plans back with the authorities and waiting on approval. So as I said before, fingers are crossed, but it certainly seems to be taking quite a while to get these plans approved, and I'll let everyone know as soon as we know. Matthew's just put a comment in the Queensland Government COVID website. It doesn't show the list of incoming plans, and they didn't mention outdoor rec. I've raised that with them, Matthew. It's very strange. They have the list of approved plans, and they have a list of industries that are working on developing industry plans, but they don't have the list of plans that have already been submitted for approval. And I said, look, this looks as if you didn't know it better, it looks as if outdoor recreation isn't even getting involved in this space. So I've actually asked them, maybe it would be a good idea. I said, I'd rather see ours appear in the approved plan list, firstly, but if they can't do that, I'd rather they have the plans submitted for consideration or for approval list, which would be really good to show people that we have already submitted our plans. I don't know if they're going to update that. They have been quite responsive, I have to say. So hopefully that'll be a change to that website, but hopefully ours will appear in the approved section sooner rather than later. But yeah, it's a good point that you make, Matthew. Tanya's just said, can we have the latest draft so we can prepare operational procedures? I've been reluctant to do that, Tanya, for the last week or so, or the last couple of weeks, because we've kept releasing new versions. And like I say, we're up to version 8 of the activity provider. I think we're at version 10 of the outdoor ed provider. I can do that. We can do that. We can make them available. The only problem is you have to be aware that if we get more feedback and change it, then you've got to then go back and change what you've done. So that's the only reason we haven't released the latest versions, but I can do it, but we'll put some wording around that on our website. I guess if we do that, then maybe as soon as we give them out, then hopefully they'll approve it and we can get on with it. So I'm happy to do that. It's just that's the only reason we haven't, because I didn't want people putting a heap of work in and then finding it undone. So by whatever changes we have to make based on the government work. We actually do have a draft plan, a page on our website for the draft plans, and I'll get to that one. That's the outdoor ed plan, first couple of pages at the moment, the latest version, version 10. It went up from 16 pages to 17, so it wasn't quite as drastic as the other, but that's because it's a different format. We got the feedback literally on Wednesday afternoon, added in the extra detail and got it back to them on Wednesday afternoon. So this has been absolutely top of priority, couldn't be higher for me. I actually came back early I had a weekend out at Stanthorpe and came back early just to make sure I didn't miss any feedback. I just want to let you know, like, it's not like we've been twiddling thumbs here. It's very much been the top of our agenda. So on Wednesday, we had a couple of queries. One was from Queensland Health, which actually said, what is this plan all about? What are the activities you're trying to cover? Which made it clear to me that we probably assumed some level of understanding of what a school camp is, which I thought wasn't unreasonable. But anyway, we've put in a statement in there to make it very clear that this plan is really about the accommodation side of outdoor education, with sleeping arrangements, dining, and assembly and bathroom facilities. So what we're saying is the outdoor activities component is in the other plan, but this plan deals with really the outdoor centres, but also whether that's intense expedition style or in centres. So I've sort of clarified that right in the opening and in the purpose of the plan, and hopefully that helps them to understand that. But I've also had to add in some extra information in relation to workplace health and safety, which is very similar to what we added into the activity providers plan. As I said previously, this plan is proposed to start, the outdoor ed plan is proposed to not start until stage 3 kicks in, which at the moment's penciled in as being 10th of July here in Queensland, but that hasn't been announced, and apparently it's not going to be announced until the end of the month. So we sort of are still waiting on that information. And the couple of things that we've proposed in this plan are that for school-aged children, the physical distancing requirements be modified, and that physical distancing required in the outdoor recreation activity provider plan be relaxed for outdoor ed providers when operating with school-aged children. And also that groups be allowed to exceed the limit of 100 people if they're all school-aged children and teachers coming from the same school. So that's the key things that we've really requested in this plan. As I say, we'll have to see what we get on that one. So I think probably, yeah, as I say, we've got a draft web page, sorry, a web page with these draft plans on it. So Mark, if you want to just share that, the link to that, then everyone will have those draft plans. And I guess if we end up with another change and draft version 11 of this, we'll just update that page. But it has it in big red writing, these are draft only. So hopefully they'll be approved soon and we can get over that step. So Mark's just shared that, that web page, and you'll see the latest plans on there. An important statement which came out from the Australian Health Protection Principal Committee, which is the committee that's advising National Cabinet in relation to all things COVID-19. So they put out a statement on Wednesday, I think it was, about risk management for boarding schools and school-based residential colleges. I think its principles are going to be applied to outdoor ed centres because there's nothing more specific to as far as guidance for outdoor ed centres. I'd recommend that everyone reviews that statement. The link's there on the preso, but Mark might share that as well in the chat. It's pretty full on, this statement, that it goes away from previously there was a guidance or a rule that 25% that you can only have 25% of capacity in a boarding school or a school college. So they've gone away from that, but they're still very specific about needing to do this, a full-on risk assessment, which isn't really a problem for outdoor ed workers or operators. But some of the statements in there are still possibly going to cause some difficulty. And my concern is that if with that statement that's just been released, it could impact on the outdoor ed industry plan. I'm hoping that based on the fact that this is already relaxed slightly, the 25% rule for boarding schools, that the Queensland Chief Health Officer might take the position that outdoor ed is more of an extension of normal school rather than boarding schools, as in the fact that it's short-term accommodation, and also that the controls we've put in place are strong enough to overcome the concern that they might have in relation to the boarding school environment. So it's sort of a wait and see at the moment, but we'll see how we go with that one. There's a whole lot of information in that statement, which I'd recommend every outdoor ed provider have a look at. I'm hoping that our industry plan will override that as specific, an option that you can opt into for Queensland outdoor ed providers. So we'll see how we go, but I'd recommend you have a look at that statement, which will pop in the chat there. So questions, queries, I'm happy to go back as we go through, but yeah, that's sort of it from my discussion about the industry plans. As I say, we're waiting on approval. We will let you know as soon as we know that it's approved. And hopefully, you know, as we go through these plans will be approved shortly, but happy to take questions or comments or just have a general discussion about where this is at. I didn't say, Corp's here to help with implementation of these plans. And so is the Queensland Rec Centre staff, who are employees of the state government through Sport and Rec. They've offered to help with implementation if people have queries about aspects of particularly the education providers industry plan. They're happy to help with implementation of that too. Just have a quick look at the chat. Pete's just said, can we post a link to Inside the Outhouse on the Corf website? Yeah, we can do that, Pete. When I say we, I sort of mean Mark can do that, but I'm sure he'll be able to sort that out. Guys just asked, what are the thoughts on using the tourism and accommodation industry plan? I think it's probably too restrictive. That won't work for most outdoor ed centres. That plan is really detailed and it provides a whole lot of information, but it's designed primarily for groups of adults. And that's the distinction that we've tried to make in our industry plan, that we're talking about groups of school-aged children predominantly with attendant teachers. And I actually made that point in my email back to Queensland Health when they were asking, what's the key activities here? I said it's accommodation, but I said it's accommodation of school-aged children, and therefore the tourism accommodation plan will not suffice, and it's not going to get, the numbers won't work for most outdoor centres. The only way it's going to work is if you're purely tent-based and you can spread your tents out all over the place. That's pretty much it, where that plan's going to work. And even then, it's quite restrictive. Jamie's just shared that link. I don't know, Jamie, if you wanted to comment about the AHPPC statement, you'd be welcome to. That's Jamie's the executive officer from Outdoors WA, our sibling organisation from the West. Did you want to speak about that statement, mate, or expand on it? Not sure. Does anyone else have any queries on, I'm just having a look, Sean's put a statement, has been informed this morning that 100% boarding students to return in term 3. And is going to follow up this afternoon. That's good news, Sean. I think that is potentially the outcome of that statement, that schools will be able to do it as long as they've got the risk management stuff in place. I deliberately quoted that paragraph on the screen. I know it's very wordy and I try not to have wordy slides, but it's an important statement. It has a whole heap of dot points of things that you need to consider, or that schools need to consider in the boarding issue, in the boarding school area. And it potentially applies to us, some of those statements, but not all of them. So that's the bit where we'd be drawing some distinctions, I think. Jamie's just let me know he's got some mic issues. I'm sure he'd like to speak. I've never heard
again, Dom.
Oh, yeah, there, mate. Gotcha. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I can give a bit of reference. The AHPPC ruling for boarding houses had been applied in Western Australia for dormitory style accommodation. So, and that meant that you could only provide accommodation at 25% of capacity. So I don't know, well, there's no providers here that could provide capacity or run at that level of occupancy. So that we put a review through, asking through our Chief Health Officer and the Minister for Education to get that reviewed, and that happened during this week. So the positive outcome for that has been the removal of that 25% capacity limit and a change to a number of the other recommendations. So it's not universal across states. They're referencing that boarding school arrangements, but education departments have used it in not having anything else specific around boarding style accommodation. So certainly would recommend people have a read, because there's some new up-to-date information from the AHPPC and their thinking that's useful within that document.
Terrific. Thanks, Jamie, and thanks for your work in, I guess, getting that that statement reviewed and reissued. That is a good sign of, you know, the work that is going on by across the industry. But yeah, thank you, mate, for chasing that up through the committee. Yeah, it is worth a read, and yeah, it probably, as Jamie said, it is a good indicator of the thinking of that committee, and that committee is made up of the chief health officers and chief medical officers right around the country, and I believe there's a couple other people on there, but it's an important committee that we need to understand, because they're the ones who are briefing National Cabinet. So what National Cabinet decides still directly affects what each state government does, even though the states seem to be taking slightly different decisions based on that, the decisions at the national level, but it still is important that we understand what's going on in that space. Aaron's just asked a question, assuming that weekend retreat guests who are predominantly adult would mean tourism accommodation plans are the ones we should follow. Yeah, there are going to be situations like that, Aaron, where if your group is predominantly adult, or even if your group is actually a group of tourists, visitors to the area, then yeah, potentially you're going to have to follow the tourism plan. I've given the example on operators are going to need, and they're referenced in the plan, the industry plans, they reference the other industry plans and even the website full of industry plans. But someone asked me, well, it's going to be so complicated following multiple plans. And you're right, it is, but that's what happens when we work in a complex environment. So I gave the examples of gyms. A gym will have to follow the fitness plan, but they might also have to, they might have a cafe, so they've got to follow the hospitality plan, and they might also have a childcare component in their operation, so they've got to follow the childcare plan. So it's not unusual. It's not like we are the standout who gets picked on by having to follow multiple plans. If our businesses are multifaceted, that's the way it is. What we've tried to do is modify some of the other plans by having particularly the outdoor education plan. And I think there's potential for those plans to then potentially be copied and maybe modified in other states. So Queensland's the only state I understand that is going through this process right now. It's been a long process. It seems long. It's actually probably 3 or 4 weeks, but I think it's going to work well for us if everyone gets the understanding out of those plans and they do help with returning to work. But yeah, Aaron, to answer your question, yes, potentially you'll need to follow the tourism and accommodation plan for weekend stuff if that's tourism related, and the outdoor ed plan for the other stuff. Cherie's flagged 3 plans to follow, but there's a lot of crossover, so it's not too bad. Yeah. And that's what we've tried to do. We've tried to get that alignment between the plans. So it's not like you have to, you know, wake up each day and say, which plan am I following today? You'll find that your overall operational plan for your organisation will incorporate parts of each of those 3 plans, and you can say, I've opted into these plans. So that's the way it can work. Jamie's made a point that it's complex in every state, which is very true. But the hygiene, distancing and responsiveness, and the key ones of monitoring and reviewing your safety management systems, and particularly the point I made earlier about considering if you've introduced any control measures to manage COVID, if that's introduced new risks or modified the risks of your previous control measures that you had to manage your operations. So one of the recommendations from Wilderness Equipment about cleaning their gear, they said you can use metho in a spray bottle and spray that on, and that'll kill the COVID virus, SARS-CoV-2. But I think one thing you'd have to very strongly consider is that introducing a fire risk, and they mentioned that because it is highly flammable, but we don't want to be introducing a measure that controls COVID-19 that potentially introduces a higher risk for of injury for our participants and our staff. So that's probably the sort of thing we very much need to be careful of. That's an obvious one, but there could be others that you need to think about in your operating environment. Just having a quick look. I did want to mention, we've still got those memes going. They've sort of waned a little bit lately because of everything else that's been going on. But if anyone does want to look at those memes and co-brand along with Outdoors Queensland, we're happy to do that too. Does anyone have any other matters that you wanted to discuss or more information on what we have spoken about?
I've just got one comment, mate. Yeah.
Yeah, David?
Yeah, I've been, well, like everyone, I've been watching with interest and getting involved in the insurance issues across the country. My first comment there is the underwriters will come back in over the next few years. Many of the reasons they're pulled out are external factors, stock market crashes and claims across a whole wide area. Probably the area that we can concentrate on is getting our activity standards, what we do, what we write we do, and reducing the number of incidents and accidents so that we look far more professional than we currently do to the underwriters and the brokers. It's not the key factor that's causing this problem, but it is something we can do something about. The adventure activity standards are a good basis. But I think we could do a lot better about how we run things. The images we put out on Facebook and stuff showing people without life jackets or helmets or whatever it might be, the underwriters actually see this stuff, and we may need to look at reviewing all our accreditation concepts, and perhaps we need some form of certification at a lower level, a certification of all the activities we do, where someone comes in and checks that we do what we say we're doing. We need to be looking at a range of things, I guess, for the future. Yeah,
and the insurance topic, like I say, it's a very big issue that's facing the sector at the minute. I've had discussions with some insurance brokers just this week about it. I know Outdoors New South Wales have had insurance brokers speaking through their sessions that they've run, and that, as I said, it's going to be a future topic in the inside at the outhouse for an entire session there. So it is an important one, and it's something, as David said, one of the things that the industry needs to do to make sure that insurers are confident that what we're doing, even if it's perceived to be risky, it's actually not so risky, and we're managing the risks, which is, to be honest, that's what everyone across the outdoor sector does every single day. We're actually really, really good at managing risks, and we manage risks that are really quite difficult when you think about it in isolation, but the expertise that we have in that side of things is actually a really strong part of what we do. And I think insurers actually get that, but I think there's also a piece of some reluctance, and perhaps we need to make it clearer that we need to demonstrate it better, I think, is probably the key part. We're already doing it well. We need to show them that we're doing it well, and have those systems in place that clearly demonstrate it, and consider what those systems are. And some of them, like David said, maybe that if you're going to have an external audit system to show that you're complying with the adventure activity standards, that doesn't come for free. If someone's going to come and spend time in your environment and check that you are actually following your procedures that align with the adventure activity standards, that's an investment to get that sort of accreditation. But if that means as a result you get a cheaper insurance policy, or you actually means you get insurance cover, it might be worth it. But that's going to be a difficult thing. I don't know. It's something people have asked if Corf would do in the past, and my answer generally was that's not our core business. But it might be a service that's required, and I think it's something that we need to seriously consider regarding the ongoing insurance and how that's going to work.
G'day Dom, Noel here, mate.
Hey Noel.
Hey mate, I've just been approached by my insurance company. They want a copy of all of my risk assessments, all my activity statements, and all my procedures on every activity that we do. So they're just making sure that we are running a professional business. Not like the old days, you could ring them up and get insurance, and that was pretty easy. But it's getting tougher and tougher now. So yeah.
Yep, and part of that I think is they want copies of all your documentation. They want to know that you've got all that documentation, but they're also having it as a benchmark to say, well, here's what this organisation says they're going to do. And if there's an incident, they're going to look back at that and go, well, you've already told us that you did A through to J control measures. What happened to I? You know, that's the sort of stuff that, you know.
I think that's probably your biggest self-assessment you'll ever get. You know, if you ever do have an incident, they're just going to come back and audit you. And
yeah. And I guess that's the reason any of those control measures need to work in your operating environment. That's why you can't just pick it up off the shelf and apply it to your business. And that's what I've been saying about these industry plans. Everything in them needs to be applied to your operating environment. And I think I've said this, I don't know, probably 100 times now. Every single operator is the expert in their operating environment. That's what you guys know and do so well. So, just having a look at the comments, Graham's put a point in there from Graham from Greenfrog. It's just said maybe Outdoors Australia could have a group that does the checks that David's talking about. It is something that, you know, the Outdoor Council could look at, but again, it wouldn't be something that you could do for free. And it also would come with a bit of a level of increased professional indemnity insurance and that sort of stuff for the organisation doing it. So it's an interesting one as far as that goes, because if you were running the accreditation scheme like that, that's actually something where the organisation would be putting its reputation on the line, but also doing that sort of work is also intensive too. So it's about capacity to be able to deliver it and deliver it well, which provides the right service for the industry and also provides the reassurance to the insurance industry. So it's a bit of a funny line to dance, but yeah, maybe that's something that the OCA needs to look at. If that's what the industry needs, we need to look at how we can deliver that. And Graham's also mentioned the ISO 9001 accreditation, and again, I think that's true. There's accreditation out there, but part of that is the accreditation against specific activities, and that's the part that I think is the key part that's missing. You know, there's tourism accreditation out there too, but that doesn't. If you get the tourism accreditation, that's saying you're a good tourism operator. You know how to greet people. You know how to make them welcome. It doesn't say you know how to safely and responsibly run a bushwalking activity or a ropes activity. It's saying you're a good tourism operator. So it's different once you get down to the activity levels.
I think we just need to get a good understanding of what, say, government and land managers, education departments, insurers and other people who have an interest in how good we are or how bad we are. And if we get that understanding and then we can actually have discussions about how to meet those sorts of requirements. I don't think it'd actually be as hard as what we all think it might be. Probably the hardest thing is starting the conversation and putting some time into deciding what is needed and how to achieve it. But if we don't, we're just going to have another insurance crisis in 10 years' time, you know, or some other thing that bites us on the bum. So I think it's time to actually do something. And we've got the standards, which at least give us a baseline for, you know, what we're supposed to be doing.
Yep. Yeah. Thank you, Dave. I'm just going to very quickly run this poll, which we ran right at the start of these sessions. I'm just interested to see how things have changed. So I just want to run this quick poll while you guys are doing that. It's the understanding of, you know, of COVID-19 crisis. It's sort of, I guess, partly for our interest, but also to see how everyone's feeling about it all, from scale of 1, I know nothing about COVID-19 crisis, to 10, ask me anything. How do you rate your personal understanding? And I just noticed Becky's put a comment, aren't the adventure activity standards intended to support this type of thing? They are, Becky, but they're a voluntary system that people can opt into as far as led outdoor activities go. So And when you're dealing with dependent participants, that's what the adventure activity standards are intended to guide people on. What we're talking about now is the accreditation against whether or not people do that. So it's another step forward, but we do have the standards and the good practice guides there as the basis which provides the information behind that you could be assessed against, I guess. That's what we're sort of talking about, or accredited against. All right, we've already had quite a few people voted. We're knocking on the door of midday. I'll just close that poll off and show you the results. So we've got a few people still at the 3, 4, 5 end of the scale, some at the 6 and 7, and then 8, 9 and 10, and 7 and 9 seem to be the most popular ones in there, but it's nice to see, you know, it's moved up a lot, this poll. I haven't got the one from 12 weeks ago to show you, but yeah, it's quite markedly improved. So that's interesting. I guess that's the situation as things have changed over time. But yeah, it's good to see that certainly the knowledge has sort of increased and the understanding as we've gone along. We're right on midday. So unless anyone has any burning topics that you wanted to raise, but as I said earlier, if you have a topic that you think needs some time in these sessions, please get in contact with us. You can just email me at eo@corf.org.au or Mark, or just zip us a message. We'd be happy to consider different topics as we go along. But we will let you know if these industry plans, if and when these industry plans are approved. And we'll update that web page that Mark shared with the draft plans once they're approved. But I'd just like to thank you all for joining us again today, and I hope you have a good weekend, and hopefully we'll see you next week. And don't forget the ABAT forums, Tuesday and Friday next week if you've registered for those ones. All right, thanks all.